presentation. Blair Humphreys works for Humphreys Company. He has 13 years of experience in real estate investing and development. He's currently overseeing the design and development of Wheeler, a mixed-use new urbanism development on the Oklahoma River. Blair is a founding member and past chair of the Urban Land Institute, Oklahoma District Council. He has a master's degree in city planning, urban design from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and a BBA in entrepreneurship from the University of Oklahoma. Blair and his wife Maggie live in Oklahoma City's historic Gatewood neighborhood with their 4 children, you're busy, and a golden doodle. Please welcome Blair Humphreys.
All right. Hi, I'm so glad to be with you here today. I am Blair Humphreys. I refer to myself as an urban designer because the suspicions of being Darth Vader are far less likely as an urban designer. But in truth, I have moved over to the dark side, working as a developer. And I was just wondering, just to kind of get a sense of the room as everyone filters in, who's with us today? So if you're a planner in the room, then I have a planning degree. I'm one of you. If you're a planners, here we are. Yeah? All right. If you're a developer in the room, raise your hand. Got some developers. Who here is in an elected position, a city official, council person? Yeah? All right. Economic development? Woohoo! People with the big bucks? That's right. And then how about architects, landscape architects, designers? All right. Who did I miss? What is it? Town manager. Oh, the CEOs that know how to actually make it run. Yes? Town manager? Yeah, nice. Other town managers in the room? All right. That's actually is the thankless work that makes everything actually happen, but rarely gets to be throwing out the first pitch at the baseball game. So we'll try to work on that. Terrific. I think get some slides here and we'll dig into it.
While you pull up the slides, community members and community advocates.
All right. Community member, who here considers themselves that their primary title here today is a community advocate or organizer? All right. Thank you guys for the tremendous work you do. Talk about thankless, so thank you. It makes a world of difference, and I'll get to talk a little bit about that today. What's great to be at an event that actually gets all of these people in the room, all of these people in these roles, in these hats. It's a community, and it's really a team effort that it takes to build our communities. Oklahoma is in many ways completely different from Maine. It's nowhere even close geographically. It's has a completely different history. Our dirt is red, but I guess if you go far enough north here, you'll hit Prince Edward Island, and you'll find some red dirt, so maybe that's not too foreign to you. On the other hand, I think it's similar in a lot of ways. We're very independent people in Oklahoma. We certainly have a history of towns and villages, but we also have a significant agricultural rootedness. And it's a community where people are friendly to each other, and they really put community first. But they'll also tell you what they think from time to time. So I want to start this story. I want to tell you really 3 parts of the presentation today. First, I'm going to give you a quick history. We'll run through why I'm here, what I'm working on, and why Kara and the great team at CNU Maine thought it was worthwhile to bring me here today and present as a developer. Give you a little bit of that history. And then I want to give you 5 takeaways that I've learned over the last 4 years. I did urban planning, urban design. I worked as a professor teaching urban design at the university for 4 years and ran an outreach institute doing consulting for towns and villages like those that you come from, primarily focused on placemaking, streetscape, and economic development. But then for the past 4 years, I've been a developer, and I think there's some unique insights that I've got by sitting in both chairs that I'd like to share with you today. And then finally, I'd like to wrap it up by just giving you a couple pieces of advice for how you can do economic development, I think, more efficiently from a top-down perspective as well as from a bottom-up or a grassroots perspective, and how those are distinctly different. And let's start the story 25 years ago in 1993. Oklahoma City is a city on the rise, as we like to say, which means it's rising from something. And what it's rising from was a pretty dead place to grow up. In the 1980s, they said we had one of the lowest urban crime rates in America because even the criminals had found out there's no one to mug downtown. In 1991, United Airlines was looking for a new place to locate their maintenance facility, and they put out a request for proposals. In Oklahoma City, the mayor put his political neck on the line. He went to bat and he convinced the voters to pass over $100 million incentive package to give to United Airlines if they would only come build this maintenance facility. The voters passed it. They put the package together. They sent it to United. It was far and away the best financial proposal they received. So the mayor was shocked when he picked up the phone one day and United Airlines let him know that he wasn't the winner of the new airline facility. Instead, they went to Indianapolis. He said, "How could you do that? I thought we had the best number." They said, "You did have the best number, but what you don't know is that we sent a team of executives with their spouses to Oklahoma City for the weekend a couple months back. And they came back and they all agreed Oklahoma City wasn't a place that they wanted to live, and it wasn't a place they wanted to subject their employees to." That stung. But the mayor, rather than take it and complain or shout, he got in an airplane to Indianapolis, decided to figure out what they were talking about. And when he got back, he told his team, he said, "We have some work to do. Indianapolis is a better place to live. United Airlines is right." He said, "So let's, instead of giving $100 million to United Airlines to come here, let's put together a package where we invest in ourselves. Let's do incentives that make it a better place for us. And then let's hope that that adds up to keep giving the corporations a reason to stay and a reason to come." So he put together this MAPS program. MAPS is $350 million. It was funded by a penny sales tax that was approved by the voters. 9 projects. Projects that range from a new basketball arena, where the Thunder now play today, to a new baseball stadium, library, a range of community facilities. And one of those projects that was on the list was the river. Now, there's a lot of great waterfront in Maine. Coastal waterfront. We have a number of coastal waterfront on Brown Lakes in Oklahoma. Not quite what you have here. It's somewhat superior. You have a lot of great river waterfront. But I don't think anything you have compares to what Oklahoma had. This is the Oklahoma River. It's one of the only rivers in a major metropolitan area that had to be mowed twice a year. This does not look like it at first glance, but this is incredibly efficient engineering. See, we used to have a river that sinuously curved through the city, had a zoo on it, it had trees, it had water. It was beautiful, but it flooded about twice a year. And about every 10 years, it had a major flood that would take out bridges. So they came in and they solved the problem. They got rid of all the water. I mean, all the water. So they put together a plan to put water back in the river. They built a series of dams. They filled up the river with water. And this is what we have today. It's amazing what a difference a river with water makes when it comes to rivers. Turned out that the efficient engineering with the riprap channels and the high banks was a perfect place for rowing. So we are now a approved Olympic training facility for rowing sports. We have a number of boathouses in the area. And as the city looked at this and they saw this catalyst that the river had caused for new development, they decided to take a look and what else can we do with this? And so they put together a plan for a series of 9 nodes along the river corridor. In this North Canadian, or what's now called the Oklahoma River Strategic Action Plan, one of the nodes that was identified was Downtown Air Park. It was a former air park. It was winding down its use as an air park. It's approximately 90 acres. And they said that this is really where the neighborhood uses should occur. This should have a mix of housing. This should have a range of shops. It should be walkable. This was right when new urbanism was coming fully into vogue, and it was this opportunity to do a truly special project that brought new housing development back to the river, brought new retail back to the river, created a Main Street strolling, dining, retail environment, and integrated the paths that were on the river for cycling and pedestrian connections. It really honed in on this quote from James Howard Kunstler: if the 20th century was about getting around, the 21st century will be about staying in a place we're staying in, right? And I think that we've seen that over the last 2 decades, that shift in focus to creating communities where we want to be. We thought it was a great idea, and so in 2006 we acquired the former Downtown Air Park out of bankruptcy. This was in the run-up in the early 2000s. You could not make a bad real estate decision in 2006. It was so easy. You buy stuff, you do something, anything, and then you sell it, and you make bukus of money. And so our family acquired it in 2006 thinking that that would be the case. You can see here the planned improvements that the city had for connecting a new park to the river. And you can see our assembled land holdings, approximately 150 acres on the south bank of the Oklahoma River. I should point out that adjacent to us, you can buy a house in this neighborhood. You could at the time for $15,000. It's a house. It's next to the largest public housing project in the city. You have an old commercial corridor here. And this had largely become, it's predominantly Hispanic. And so with the immigration wave that's occurred over the last 30 years, this area would be somewhere in the range of 75 to 90% Hispanic, depending on the neighborhood. It was an empty site, large assembled piece, had significant brownfield issues, significant environmental issues, significant floodplain issues. There were a lot of reasons that smart people who knew what they were doing allowed us to outbid them, but we did it anyway. So, through 2007, 2008, there was a lot of prepping and planning and eBaying that went on. This was a plan that was put together with a great reputable firm out of Boston for the waterfront. It was a town center development. Who had a chance to meet with Mr. Gibbs yesterday and talk about retail? All right, so one of the things he talks about is the importance of the different retail types. He typically talks about the importance of anchors. Well, there was this slight phase when money was so easy and real estate was so easy in the mid-2000s where you didn't need anchors anymore. You did town center developments. You do massive improvements, hundreds of thousands of square feet, and you'd fill it up with stores and office in an instant. Many of those projects went bankrupt, and that was the exact type of project that we were getting ready to build when the recession hit. But before the recession hit, we thought we had the silver bullet that was going to make it all work in our case. We had the plan, we had the marina, we had about $20 million of river improvements planned, but we needed something to give people a reason to come. And my brother figured it out one night on eBay when he saw that the Santa Monica Ferris wheel was for sale. And I think within 72 hours of finding out it was for sale, he was the owner of the Santa Monica Ferris wheel. Like I said, it was pre-recession. Things were easy, right? You buy it. He got to go out to Santa Monica, got to take his family on the last ride. He made the paper. We were all pretty proud of him. We were questioning, didn't seem like anybody else was buying things on eBay for their multi-million-dollar real estate projects, but and made painful interest payments. This was all according to pro forma. This is exactly how we planned it. No. The pro forma exploded in our faces, and after fielding a few angry calls from a few investors, we were able to quiet everybody down, get everyone to buckle their seatbelts, came up with a plan to do nothing for 5 years, and just hope for the best. And that's what we did. This allowed me to go to grad school. This allowed me to go get a real job, doing something that was productive. And really, it allowed me to put this project behind me and leave the family company and think, I will never go back because I have no clue how to fix that thing. In 2014, though, my dad called. He said, hey, I either have to hire someone else or you can come do this. We got to figure it out because we have no other options. And I really think many of the best solutions come from the fact that the person either is going to go bankrupt or they have to figure it out. And that's really where we were. So if you're looking for advice on how to do real estate development well, try to ignore everything I've said from what we did for our first 8 years. It wasn't because we weren't on the right track. It wasn't because we weren't doing what other people were doing. But it's not always good to just jump on a trend and decide to plop it down where you are. And it also shows you that some of the people that maybe haven't had success in development in your communities, it could just be a feature of the cycle they got caught in. Because a lot of times you don't know what's happening. So, Wheeler District, 2014, it's a reboot. It's 8 years down the road. We've now had a famous Ferris wheel that appeared in the Iron Man movie in storage for 6 years in a warehouse in Wichita, Kansas. Of course, we stored it for 6 years after splashing the local newspaper with all the visions of how great the Ferris wheel was going to be. And so we would constantly get these messages of whatever happened to that Ferris wheel, I thought you said it would. We did too. We thought it would be somewhere. And so we needed a reboot. We needed a new brand, and we needed a new story. Insert Wheeler District. As we focused on this project, a couple things became clear. One, we just had to be honest about what it was. Hey, this got screwed up. The plan didn't work. And so we're restarting it. Two, it's a poor part of the city. We're okay with that, and we're going to connect with and embrace and engage the part of the city we're in. But we're not going to try to convince you it's something that it's not. And three, we're going to need a lot of help to do this. And so we'd really like to have the community be a part of it. We need the community both from a government level to step up and partner with us, or this can't work. We also need the community from a grassroots level to step up and partner with us. So we started to tell the story. We committed to some fundamental values. We named it after one of the early developers and bankers in the city who actually donated the land for the first civic park. Now I know that there's a number of developers who've had a lot of success lately who like to name projects after themselves. That wasn't our model here. So maybe that means that there will be no White House in the future for our family, but that is all right. We named it after a guy named James B. Wheeler. He was a philanthropist, and he cared deeply about the city, he cared deeply about the community, and he had donated facilities that ended up hosting the city's first zoo right across the river from us. We committed to the fundamental values. We said, hey, the city's plan is good. The wind's already blowing at our back on that. The planning department's already behind it. Let's use that language, let's use that framework, and let's build off of it. Let's focus on biking because we have this incredible trail network, and let's connect into that. Let's focus on an urban waterfront. So this was all stuff that before we even asked for anyone's advice on anything, we said, here's what it's going to be. And I think that's really important as you put together plans, is that there's got to be a trade-off or a transition point. One where you say, no, here's the foundation, here are the fundamental values of what this project's going to be. It's going to be equitable. It's going to be for the community. It's going to have great public spaces. It's going to be dense or have affordable housing. What are the fundamentals? And then you say, if you would like to be a part of helping us create a project, we'd love to get your input. We'd love to get your feedback, and we'd love to invite you into the process so that you can get your fingerprints on this and really become a believer. And so that's what we did when we asked the people. So we had put out a call for response and asked who's interested in coming to this charrette process where we're going to co-design this process with the community, this project with the community. And one of the questions we asked them, just to try to get a sense of the demographic we were working with and what communities they look to, is if you didn't live in Oklahoma City, which clearly, because you're here, must be your absolute favorite place to live, where else would you like to live? What other places do you love? And this is what we got back: Portland, Denver, Chicago, Austin. This was really important for us because when we're interacting with our council people or interacting with the mayor or other city officials, their mindset tended to go towards Houston and Dallas and our wealthier suburbs like Edmond. They didn't really think that anyone in Oklahoma City was really striving to become Denver or Portland. We tried to set expectations and give them a sense of what it could be with their help. This is one thing that I've realized is a key, is expectations. See, so much of development, so much of community building is about maintaining two things: trust and momentum. And we had already gone through it the first go, where we put out all these expectations, all these renderings, all these visions, and then we were just hoping we could pull it off. Well, when we didn't pull it off, everybody was like, I knew it. Another developer with this pretty rendering, just telling a story. So this time we said, hey, we're just getting started here. So just bear with us. So we want you to help us and share your vision. And then we're going to try to, over 5 years, we're going to try to put together this small little village. We're going to do this incrementally. And then in 10 years, we're hoping that we have a neighborhood. But this is what we want. We want a place in 50 years that you're going to love, and that the community is going to love, and it'll be a baked-in part of the city. And so this isn't really about Wheeler. This is just about creating the next great urban neighborhood for the city we all call home. We had two parts to it. We had the event itself, and then we had a charrette where people could fill out an online or a digital charrette and submit their ideas. And then we worked with experts, and this is the key. There's people that know how to do these master plans. So if you're in a community that's looking to do a plan, you're going to need the key ingredients. One is somebody on the ground that's in your community that is a champion for that. And then you're going to need the team of people that actually know how to pull it off. That might be in your community. It might be outside. We went to Florida. We found Dover Cole, Victor Dover, who I think maybe has spoken here before. But he's tremendous. He brought in a terrific team, and this is what we were able to do in 1 week. We rented out a restaurant that was just around the corner in one of the up-and-coming little commercial districts. In the course of a week, we had over 1,000 people turn out. We had 28 tables produce maps that had their ideas for what they wanted to happen. You can see it ranged from hipsters to cowboy hats, and really the planning team said that it was the most demographically diverse, especially from an age standpoint, of any group that they have seen attend a charrette. The truth is, we put together a Spanish language flyer and distributed it to the neighborhoods without much success. And so even when you try or you do your best to engage the community, it's clear that we still have a long way to go, both as a planner but certainly as a developer in terms of understanding how to do that well. We put together their ideas. We allowed every table to present out. We had an open house where 3 days later, as the plans came together, who here's participated in a charrette? Oh, right. You guys are pros. All right. So put together plans. Did you have fun? Yeah. And did the project happen? No? How many people participated in a charrette where the project happened? How many people participated in a charrette where the project didn't happen? Hey, that's over 50% happened. That's pretty good. So charrettes are fun no matter what happens, but they're, I think, more rewarding when it does happen. We had a team, so we had civil engineers, we had floodplain engineers, we had architects, urban designers, everyone working in concert over the course of the week. And 1 week later, we presented out the plan, and this is it. This is not the typical block pattern for Oklahoma City, as you might imagine. There are a couple things that we were able to keep from the old airport. You can see Runway Boulevard, which cuts through the project on the old memory lines of the runway. It'll become a tree-lined avenue with a 50-foot center median and a bike path that connects straight into the river trail system. That river trail system can take you all around the city, so you'll literally be able to walk out your front door, hop on your bike, and have a seamless connection without crossing over any traffic, and go through the majority of the city, including into downtown. We kept the old terminal building and the old hangar building on the south end. We reserved a site for our neighborhood school and placed the school on the seam between the new construction neighborhood and the existing neighborhood. It's impoverished next door. This is an area that, because of this shift in demographics, has a severe overcrowding problem. And so we wanted to have a school, but we wanted to make sure that it was a school that wasn't perceived as a us versus them, but it was a school that was actually going to help the community and help that problem. And then we have a range of parks and public spaces throughout it. Of course, we had the Ferris wheel. We had to figure out somewhere to put that. So that was one of the fun things at the charrette, is Victor got to stand up there and say, hey, one of the pieces you get to move around on your map is where should the Ferris wheel go? And we think we found the perfect home. I have not found yet the developers that are going to do all of the red terracotta European buildings, but we're working on that. And you can see the different types of streets. So everything from kind of a Baroque linear avenue, think like a French boulevard, to the wandering, meandering in Woonarf that would be similar to like Strogat Street in Copenhagen, right? And then on the east side of the plan, really taking advantage of the downtown views over the water and having streets that radiate out from it. You can see here, that's kind of a sense of how this could all connect together with the plan, connecting to the river trails, over the bridge, through the park. You can basically ride downtown or walk downtown without crossing a vehicular street until you get to the new convention center and arena area. 5 lessons learned that I wanted to give you that I think are key takeaways. Be a critical optimist. This is my biggest thing. Is we need more people in our communities that are critical about defining what the problems really are, but not for the sake of being pessimistic or trying to take away from others. No, they really do it through the lens of optimism. They're saying, no, we need to rigorously define what the issue is, what the challenge is, so that we can work together to solve it, right? So we've had some of these. In real estate, I've come to the conclusion all it is problem solving. I have no idea what a real estate developer does, because people say, like, well, did you draw those lines where the cars are going to go? No, that was the engineer. Well, so you designed the house then? No, that was the architect. And well, then you have all the money? No, well, we had to get that from investors and a banker, so I don't actually. And well, what do you do? I was like, I don't know. Actually, I show up at meetings and introduce myself as an urban designer. That's what I do. But it's really problem solving. It's trying to say, hey, what's the challenge here? What's the challenge? And then how do we solve that problem? Santa Monica Ferris wheel in Santa Monica, I was trying to think of an analogy of how to describe the way I look at this, and I was drawn to these gymnast rings. A lot of times when you start to stack up the layers of, I got to do something that, the Venn diagram. Imagine this is a Venn diagram. It's about 10 circles deep, right? I need something that works for my banker, that works for my investor, that matches a real estate cycle, that has market demand, that can be built according to fire code under the entitlements that are approved with community support, that has council support, and then I need it to also somehow justify the investment by the city that's going to allow the infrastructure to actually work. So a lot of times I'm like, hey, could you just hold that ring steady? I got to shoot an arrow straight through all of these rings right here. And if I could just get 3 of them, just quit swinging for a second, maybe we could get 1 and time it right. Right? Does that make sense? And so if you're ever in a system or a situation where somebody's saying, like, I just need this, and you're like, well, we might be able to do that. They're probably thinking, like, no, I need it now, because I don't know how much longer I can keep this property under contract, or how much longer I'll have the votes. Just to give you a quick for instance on this, we worked for 1.5 years to set up the school for approval with the district, and we included in that process 3 of the sitting school board members that were in perfect position to approve it, and we included the superintendent. Well, within 3 months, 2 out of the 3 school board members had surprised us by deciding not to run again, and the superintendent resigned. And if you're in our shoes where you've invested in that process, you're looking at it and you're saying, all right, we get to go back to the first ring and start over. We got to get these things locked down again, right? So be thorough in defining the challenge. I think that's really important. But then be hopeful and persistent in pursuing a solution, right? And this is how you get things done, because there will be plenty of people that will say no, or there'll be plenty of constraints that pop up. And there's certainly real constraints, but there's also a lot of fake constraints. And then set realistic expectations, and I talked a little bit about that. And so right now, through the development process, this is what we have today. When I took over the project in 2014, I made some bold. I had a mentor that was at an interview with me, and he heard me tell the reporter, like, oh yeah, by Christmas of 2016, there'll be people living in Wheeler. I can't wait to see the families on the playground enjoying their kids. And he's like, don't ever say dates. Don't do it. I was like, no, that was conservative, Richard. We got this. I know what I'm doing. We got this. So 4.5 years later, we got dirt, and we're very proud of that dirt. It was hard to get to the dirt. This is the dirt, though, this is the riverfront. one of the things that became clear is I was not going to get the entitlement approved or the public-private partnership approved until the Ferris wheel went up, because people were tired of it. They're like, we're tired of hearing about it. We want to see something. We want to know that this is real. And I was like, well, we're trying to design the Ferris wheel into an urban plaza, and right now we have this barren abandoned air park. I was like, I'm not quite sure how that'll work. They're like, well, you're going to have to figure it out. And so we were driving back from the amusement factory in Wichita, and I was talking to a friend, and he's like, you just can't do this. He goes, if you put a Ferris wheel down there, it's going to fail, and then your whole project's going to fail. I was like, well, this is a real constraint. I have one group that I need saying you have to build the Ferris wheel. I have the other group saying that it's going to fail. We've got to figure out how to do this. And so we use design. And I think that design can solve a lot of problems. It can't solve every problem, but you'd be surprised what you can accomplish if you set out the challenge before you. This is what we came up with. It provides an urban experience. It provides a great view of downtown. Here's how we did it. There's a couple other constraints I'll just add just to make things fun. Our property line was here. The city wouldn't sell us this yet until we proved that we could do it. There's a jet fuel line that runs there. There's a lot of interesting things going on. What we tried to figure out is, there's a 40-mile-an-hour wind that runs this way, 260 days a year. But what we tried to figure out is we tried to say, okay, what's the most important thing first? Well, we got to put the Ferris wheel in a location where it's going to fit for a long time to come. And then we need to design improvements that are going to work today at a high level, but they're also going to work 20 years from now when this is surrounded by urban buildings. And then we need to provide people with a great experience and a reason to come back. And so this is our urbanism, right? I have a building with bathrooms and a ticket stand, and it sells Cokes and candy bars. And then I have a picnic pavilion that doubles as a band stage. That plinth right there, I got a picture in here I can show you, I think. Great connections to the river trails. That plinth right there, you can see, serves as a stage. This serves as the backing. I threw in a bocce court because we had too much space and not enough tables. But then we had to figure out some way, and while we waited 10 years for the building to come in, how do we create the urban enclosure and block a 35-mile-an-hour wind? And so we came up with this. It's the cheapest way you can use shipping containers, or at least I thought it was. Those shipping containers are 40 by 8. They cost about $4,000 a piece. You can stack them, and then you can put a mural on them, and you get that, right? You also picked up about 640 square feet of lockable storage, which wasn't so bad. If the city engineer wouldn't have made us put in a $30,000 infrastructure and concrete below it because he was worried they were going to blow over, I think we would have been fine. But it actually makes a pretty great courtyard. You can see there. And it's a lively place. It's a place, we have a music series that's going. But it was literally urban enclosure that was created in the midst of an abandoned airfield. But when you're there, you forget where you are. We've closed out all the worst views. We've opened up all the best views. And it's a place people love. We adopt and adapt. So this is iAmsterdam. I've been collecting, even before Pinterest, I was collecting ideas like this. I was like, I want to do one of those someday. And when I say I want to do one, when you pin iAmsterdam, you're not going to bring iAmsterdam to Maine. That wouldn't make any sense, right? So you got to come up with something clever. I mean, I Am Lewiston's not really clever like that. Or I played around with Oklahoma, Welcome Oklahoma. I had nothing. So finally we just simplified it and went with OKC. As we set this up, really the idea was that when people went to the Ferris wheel, they rode the Ferris wheel, they needed somewhere, we're in the selfie age, they needed somewhere to memorialize their Ferris wheel trip. We didn't want this to be Darth Vader designing fake public art, right? So we went and got a real artist and a real fabricator that was in the community and had a great network. We asked him to work with us in finalizing the design, the concept, and then fabricating it. So all of a sudden his Twitter feed blows up, his Instagram, and he's giving updates about every day that he's working on these OKC letters, this great public art project that he's so excited about. And he really took ownership of it. It became his. This gives you a sense of what that looks like at night. You have the city skyline in the background. You have the Ferris wheel. We still haven't found out if kids are allowed to climb on them or not. We don't say anything. So it was asked, like, is that legal? Is that okay? Did your attorney sign off? I'm like, don't ask crazy questions. All right? But it works. And the one thing that we got wrong is we should have charged people to take pictures of the OKC letters and then given them a free Ferris wheel ticket. Because we have buses and limos with prom kids and all this stuff that'll come up, they'll unload, they all take their picture, straight back on the limo, straight out. And we're like, hey, we'll give you a discount. No. But it's worked. It's been great marketing for us. It's the most selfied spot in all of Oklahoma. And that is something. So, you can hop on eBay, you can get something with a story, and you can create spectacle. Spectacle is not everything, but in certain situations, it's certainly something. Cultivate collaborators. We started with the charrette. It's all about getting people's fingerprints on it, right? And one of the things we did at the charrette is, on the way out, we had a poster. We had everybody sign the poster, put their signature on it. They were proud of what they had contributed to the process. That's continued to help us in terms of the early pre-sales. That's continued to help us in terms of the politics. That's continued to help us in terms of creating a feedback loop where the project really gets stronger. But we can consider them a part of the process and a part of the team. We also started a criterium, and this wasn't our idea. We had somebody come to us and say, hey, your runway would be great for bicycle racing, crit racing, but we need a little help pulling it off. We need the facility for free, and then we need a little bit of sponsorship money. And so we were in on that. Sounded like a great deal to us. One of the core values that we said in the beginning is that this would be for cyclists. Now, really our goal is to get towards for commuting cyclists, but we'll use guys in spandex as a bridge to get there, right? And so we have about 100 riders come out every Tuesday night from March to September. Our sponsorship comes in the form of donations for posters and t-shirts so that we can control the marketing and branding. So we get great branding around the city. Here again, this is a way for us to advertise. Ultimately we're selling houses and we're selling land, and we get that. But the story we're telling is that we're really trying to sell a place that's about community. And if we're going to be authentic to that, then we have to make sure that we're actually selling community and we're actually building it. And so this gives us an opportunity to do that. And so we work with different designers from around town. We come up with a unique poster every year. They get t-shirts, and then they sell the t-shirts to get the sponsorship that's implied. This came in handy, having all these friends that are doing this stuff. When we wanted to go after some GEO bond money, we had just used pretty much all the political ammunition we had, and I'll get a little bit more into, you all have TIF here, right? Big fans of TIF, are we? Yeah? Developers? Woo-hoo! Yeah. All right. Free money. No, it's, any Darth Vaders on TIF? Yeah? All right. Well, we can talk a little bit about TIF. My TIF package, which pays for, reimburses for public improvements and park infrastructure, if the project is successful, we front all the money, we take all the risk, and then if it works, we get back what we paid for public improvements. It took about 3 years to negotiate, and it was incredibly difficult, and we had just gotten it approved when the city announced that they were soliciting ideas for the next GEO bond package. Well, we didn't think that it would go over very well if we submitted an idea, considering we had just, especially for a bridge, considering we had almost burned every bridge in town by that point. No, I'm kidding. But we had an idea, and we thought it was too good. We have these paths on both sides of the trails. The only way for the bikes to get from side to side is to double back and cross over on arterials that have traffic doing 50, 60 miles an hour. And yet there's this decommissioned rail bridge that had been sitting there directly connecting two paths. Still structurally sound, perfectly positioned. So we were trying to figure out, okay, how do we triangulate on this deal? We called a local architecture firm that we knew did a lot of civic work. Typically the way this happens in Oklahoma City at least is if a firm gets their name on the idea, then they're already ahead when it comes to the request for proposals, for doing the work itself. So they thought it was great. They were like, yeah, we get it. That makes sense. They put together a little design pitch. They did a little dog and pony show. They made every newspaper and news channel in town. They ended up presenting it to like 3 of the main deciding bodies on the new GO bond package. One of the ways that the city decided to use as a litmus test for finalizing the bond list was to put up an online poll and have people submit which projects. And so we emailed the package to all the bicycle people that race every week. And this was the top vote getter for all of the bond projects. And you know, when you have a community and you have a group of people and you're doing that kind of grassroots, you're just making introductions. They didn't get any extra t-shirts out of the deal. You know, we weren't handing out Gatorade. It was simply, yeah, that's a good idea. We should do it. So this new pedestrian bridge is funded. We had a little over $2 million that was pledged towards the project to create also the connecting trails into the neighborhood, not our neighborhood, the neighborhood west of us. And then finally just continuing, not just collaborators, but also real partnerships, business partnerships. We have done some other master plan communities, and we've actually started a home building company in the past. Starting a home building company when you don't know what you're doing is a terrific way to lose a ton of money. It's incredibly hard to be a contractor and to pull together the right subs and to get it done well. And so in this case, we wanted to start and make sure that we could deliver great housing product from a great local builder. But we put together a unique structure in which we're actually doing profit sharing. And this means that I can ask the builder to go build a 700 square foot house because I'm going to actually split the land cost as a percentage of his margin. And so, whereas if you work on a typical project, you have a set land cost for every house, it's going to push all the houses into this kind of narrow segment. We put it together to where really we could work together and collaborate on selecting those, and we'd be riding that wave together. When we do a big house that has a lot of margin, we both win together. I get more money for the land. When we do a small house that has less margin, we both ride that wave together, and it works out fine on the average. So here's what we've been putting together for the first phase. You'll notice that we started the project here. Now, people always ask, they say, well, why wouldn't you start there? That's where your best land is. With your downtown views, you already got the Ferris wheel. You could create critical mass. There's a lot of good reasons to do that. My issue is that I have houses now selling over here for $25,000. And so if I try to go do anything substantial that moves into like a mid-rise construction that requires any type of structured parking component, I'm not going to get that thing to pencil. The appraisals won't be there. So very similar to Allie's project, we had to start small in order to prove up the appraisals. And our goal is to use an incremental village development approach to build that value. And so that hopefully by the time we get here, in say 8 to 10 years, we'll be able to really do the site justice with development that makes sense. We need to prove up those appraisals here first. Here's a sense of what phase 1 looks like. It's about 60 single-family houses, a range of townhomes, 60 to 80 apartments, a little bit of office. We just had a brewery commit on this site, which we're super excited about, brewery and tap room. We have a restaurant that's committed for the old terminal building in the green. And then you can see we're really trying to show off the different types of street types that we have. Everything from a typical kind of urban street with a urban sidewalk configuration, our tree-lined avenue, as well as a Woonarf, which is a curbless shared pedestrian and auto street that's cutting through here. Here's a sense of some of the housing. One of the things we noticed is that all the apartment prices downtown were creeping up to a point where, as people were getting married, they were being forced to move out to the suburbs because there was nowhere else to live. So we said, well, shoot, for how much they're paying in rent, we can build them a house. It just has to be small. So, like, here's a Doodlebug, 846 square feet, 2 bed, 1 bath, $188,000. We have houses as small as 647 square feet. The lots are, I don't put this in the marketing pamphlet, but they're oppressive. They are 24 by 36. We market them as low maintenance lots, which they are. They have a single covered space off the alley. We only did 12 of these though, and the basic idea was, hey look, somebody who's working and traveling or who's looking to downsize, the whole idea is that they don't want a yard. And the whole idea of this project is that we're going to have great third places and great outdoor spaces. So let's do that. These sold out. So we had 12 of these and we had 48 more typical single family homes. We've sold 12 out of 48 single family homes. We haven't started construction on any of them. These are all pre-sales. We sold 12 out of 48 single family homes and we sold 12 out of 12 cottages. And we won't pour the first foundation until the end of July. And so that's by getting the right partners, they have the right connections, they already have a trusted brand. We were able to leverage that combined with our story and pull it together. And that gives you a sense of what those cottage courts end up looking like as they come together. So one of the questions, I participate in this group called the National Town Builders Association, and we've been getting solicited lately by communities or economic development officials or even consultants that kind of package their access to developers. How do you attract good developers, or what can we put together to attract good developers? Or really, in my mind, you're trying to attract good development, and hopefully you get a serviceable developer that comes with it. And I had a couple thoughts that I just wanted to share, especially with as many key decision makers for Maine communities in the room. One is, when I look back on our TIF process, which I said took 3 years, it frustrates me. One, I'm incredibly grateful, and the people I work with are great, and they're just implementing the process that they have. And so none of this is hopefully looking to give horse in the mouth or doing anything to violate the trust of those partnerships, but 3 years is a long time, and you can't pro forma it because you have no idea what's going to happen. And so when it comes to top-down incentive programs like a TIF, I think it's highly preferable to go to something that's transparent, that creates an equal playing field, and that treats every scale of developer, big and small, the same. The biggest key to that is that you should be able to anticipate exactly what that incentive would be when you're still just doing pro forma on a speculative purchase of a lot, right? In our case, we had to get the land, we had to paint ourselves into a corner. One of the questions in our case, they do the but-for test. You all familiar with the but-for test? So, would this development happen but for the assistance that we're providing? Well, since we had purchased the land in 2006, blew up the pro forma, held it for 8 years, spent 3 more years doing entitlements, we're now 9 years behind on our original pro forma. We were passing the but-for test with flying colors. It was fantastic. So that one was easy. But if you think about it, that's really, shouldn't the city not be in a position where it's rewarding developers that screwed up, right? And really penalizing developers that have their act together. I think instead I looked at programs like they have in San Antonio, where they're doing they say, hey, this is a general area of the city where we'd like to see more for-rent housing. So we're just going to do a straight line incentive, $10,000 per housing unit. That could be in a duplex, could be in an apartment. We don't care. We just want more housing here. You can go ahead and pencil that in on your pro forma today. Your banks can know it's going to be real. You don't have to know anybody. You don't have to schedule any meetings. All you have to do is build units and fill out this form, right? And that would be a huge help, especially in attracting the developers that can do that missing middle product, that aren't going to have the high level of access or necessarily the deep pockets and the time to navigate a political process. If you can do that, you're going to attract good developers. If instead of putting out an RFQ to find developers, you just put out a marketing pamphlet that said which sites are available in your community and how much your incentives are for anyone, I think you're going to see good developers come your way. You might get a few bad developers too, but the truth is that all communities are really going to be a combination of those things. There are things I just say on that from a top-down perspective. One of the things that we look to do is we, as part of the entitlements process, negotiated as much design review out of our project. In our case, we had more on the line than the city did, and so what we got the city to do is say, where is your design review most important from a civic outcome standpoint? And we'll leave it there, and we'll submit ourselves to the process, which It costs significantly extra time, significantly extra money, and we're subjecting ourselves to a commission of our peers that we know. I mean, it's not like some of them are experts, but the reality is they're prone to politics as well, and a lot of it boils down to which way the community is going on something, and it has very little to do with the actual design implications. So we were able to say, okay, where is it key politically? So the waterfront and the key arterial, and then where is it not key? We already had an exemption in Oklahoma City for single-family homes, so we were saying, you're already exempting the majority of the development that occurs down here anyway. Why not exempt everything under 20,000 square feet if you know it's going to be built according to these standards? And they were able to do that. Take steps to align the opportunity with the vision. In our case, perfect. In our case, the entitlements process, we had a real challenge. We were basically trying to do a part of downtown without being the city. When you read through our code in Oklahoma City, and this is probably somewhere in yours, you basically have all these exemptions that are created if the city's doing something. So you have to do a 30-foot return curb radius unless it's approved by the Public Works Director. Or you can only do the build-to line at this standpoint unless it's approved here. Well, we couldn't walk into a 15 to 20-year project needing those discretionary approvals each and every time we submitted a permit. So we had to get that done in the entitlements process. The project ended up requiring about 5 variances at the PUD level. We basically submitted as part of our entitlements package a rewrite of the subdivision regs that changed everything from site triangles to curb return radius to curb standards to gutter standards. I mean, it is a rewrite. Now, the interesting part about that is everything we were doing had already been done downtown, but it was all exempt because it was being done by the city. And so I think in the same way that Ali was saying earlier to do the test on the cottage that you love, I think you could also look at some of your street standards and say, hey, this project that we just built isn't even in keeping with our own regulations that we're making everybody else live by. And when it came to the entitlements process, the city, thankfully, this was the big aha, but as we were talking to the zoning attorney, he said, I just don't know how you're going to do this because you're not willing to say what anything will be. And I'm like, well, it's 150 acres of incremental village. I can't tell you exactly which lot something's going to be on. He's like, well, they're going to be worried that the whole thing's going to be bars or something. I was like, well, that would be a really weird place if we just built a community of bars. But I was like, well, how do they do it downtown? He says, oh, well, they have a special base zoning downtown that allows for all those things. And I was like, well, is it? He's like, you have to start a PUD with a base zoning. And I was like, you mean their zoning downtown is a base zoning? And they call it the Downtown Business Transitional District 2, right? It was the zoning. He's like, yeah. And so we ended up creating a PUD that was based on a base zoning that was based on a collection of base zonings, which only a planner could appreciate how ridiculous that is. But on the other hand, we were just grateful that the city had already solved their own problem from a zoning standpoint, and that we were able to adopt their solution as our base zone. And we provided some extra buffers for transitioning to more residential next to the neighborhood. We provided some buffers for uses to a degree. But for the most part, what we try to do with this is, anybody familiar with what New Urbanists call pink zones, right? Yeah, and for the most part, that's what we've created. So we have no minimum lot requirement. We basically have no use requirements. We tried to create this sandbox where we can invite developers to come develop with us and do great urbanism. And then finally, whereas from a top-down economic development perspective, it's important to create an equal playing field. Relationship and working together and helping should matter when it comes to site-specific circumstances. And so this could be everything from an easement. It could be, when we put the Ferris wheel in place, we finally got the city to say the only way we can approve this is on a revocable permit. And so we spent $2.5 million on a revocable, developing improvements on a revocable permit. It requires a lot of trust and it requires a lot of relationship. When they say, but don't worry, we're going to move forward with a land exchange where we'll end up selling you the parcel underneath the Ferris wheel. We just can't do it for 24 more months. So I think there's two sides to that. When it's grassroots, it's all about relationship. It's all about helping people. It's all about solving the problems together and really being more entrepreneurial across the spectrum. Whereas when you're really working on the top level incentives, it's about creating an equal playing field for everyone. So thank you. I have time, I think, just for a couple questions or maybe not.